You've got a great idea for a side hustle. Your ADHD dopamine strikes, and before you know it, you have spent days, weeks, maybe even months hyper-focusing on your new idea. But before you dive in and sign up for a whole bunch of apps, buy a $600 cry cut machine, or decide you're going to make artisanal treats for dogs with anxiety, let's take a deep breath and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of doing a side hustle. And I'm going to pull all my examples from my own life. No research needed here. These are all things I've done. Hey friends, I'm Christine Dunning, Master Certified Life Coach, founder of 2Cat Coaching, and your guide to ADHD-friendly adulting. This is the second of 4 episodes in a mini-series about side hustles. Today's episode is going to delve more into my personal experiences, like I mentioned. I've had more side hustles than I've had jobs, and I want you to learn from my experience and from my mistakes. So, a quick review from the first episode. I break down side hustles into 3 big categories. Number 1, the part-time job. Think retail, bartending, weekend reception work. Great for ADHDers who need easy money, but really need external accountability. You don't want to think about it. You just want to show up and do your job. Number 2 is 1099 contractor work. And if you're from outside the United States, again, 1099 is just a tax form for freelancers. You are working for somebody else, but it's on your own terms. A few examples would be things like rideshare driving, food delivery, tutoring if you're working for an outside company, very possibly skilled work like copywriting or graphic design. At the end of the year, instead of filling out a W-2 and they take out taxes, you get a 1099 tax form. You probably have higher pay. You are responsible for paying all your personal taxes on these. And the third one, and the one that I've done the most of, building something from scratch. You have a great idea for a small business, a product or a service you can sell. Digital products, Etsy shops, writing, coaching, craft selling, selling on Poshmark or eBay, content creation. You're building something that's yours. But understand, you'll need a high level of business skills to make something like this succeed. Either your own skills or somebody you can afford to hire. One thing to think about, AI can be a help, but remember, it's not a replacement for your own ideas and thoughts. It's still pretty obvious when something is AI generated. Please do use it as a tool, but don't let it take the place of your own ideas, thoughts, and frankly, sweat. One caveat, I do use ChatGPT to help me organize my thoughts, create outlines, and do final edits on some of my pieces. But I always check its work because it's not always accurate, and I make a lot of adjustments. Last, beware of passive income fallacy. Yes, some income is more passive than others, but honestly, nothing is truly hands-off. So, again, our four episodes, episode 18 is the stuff I just described. Why a side hustle is good, some ideas on what to avoid. Next time, I'm going to analyze some popular side hustles from each of the categories, some of the ones that you might think about or see the most often. The pros, the cons, what kind of money you can expect either to make or that you need to invest. And lastly, we'll get into the final nitty-gritty, how to choose, how to find, and how to succeed at the side hustle that best works for you. So again, my story, most of my career, I was in public schools teaching music. I retired in 2021. And since then, I've done a whole slew of side hustles. And I always did a bunch of side hustles while I was teaching as well. Honestly, for me, this really works. If I don't have my brain going in 5 different directions doing these kinds of things, I get bored. I just really do. So I'm going to list a little bit of what I am doing right now. The list is long, so I apologize. I'm also going to tell you which of the 3 categories it falls into. Is it a job? Is it 1099? Or is it something I run on my own? So The first few things are all about music because that is such a big part of my skill set. I do substitute teach. I work at a couple of different school districts that are here locally for me, and both school districts that I worked at when I was a full-time teacher. As a retired teacher, I do get top dollar at both of those schools, so that really helps. Subbing isn't always the best paying, but there are some real perks to that. I use my free time to write things for my podcast or my trivia game, which you'll hear about in a minute. And honestly, it's not difficult for me. I only teach music. I can walk into any music position and teach. So I also am a pianist. I play piano for churches, choirs, and musicals. Those really come in all three forms. The first one, by the way, is a job. These come in all three forms. It's a little bit of each. I have one church where I'm an employee. I have another couple of churches where I sub on a regular basis, where I'm 1099. The schools, it's kind of a mix depending on what school district I'm in and what I'm playing for. The musicals tend to be freelance. So I submit an invoice and then pay the taxes at the end. I also teach private voice and piano lessons. These days, I really teach them through a studio. So that's a 1099 job. They help get me the students and keep my 2 days where I teach really full, which is great. And now moving out of music a little bit, I have done rideshare driving off and on for a long time. I'm going to go into that in quite a bit of detail later. I don't do it much anymore. A lot of it's time aspects. I just don't have a lot of time. That is a 1099 gig. I also rent rooms out in my house. I've been doing that for a long time through Airbnb, but I'm in a bit of a dispute with Airbnb right now. So I'm moving some of that to private. Lots of tax write-offs I can take on that one. So that really helps that. Same thing with the Uber. I also host and write digital trivia games online. That's something I do myself. My company is called Quizlandia. I have a regular Monday night game, and then occasionally I have done it for other companies. I especially did a lot of that during the first parts of the pandemic. Everybody was looking for entertainment. Now I'm mostly down to just doing my weekly game. I also sell some digital products on Teachers Pay Teachers and on Etsy. Actually, I'm working on converting my trivia into digital trivia games to sell on Etsy. And I sell a certain number of music products on Teachers Pay Teachers. Not a lot. Neither one of those make me much money, but it is one way to earn a little bit extra. I, of course, am creating this podcast. This is something I'm doing myself. I did have to invest some money into this, some equipment, a couple of different companies that I use to help create the product and to advertise it, Riverside and Buzzsprout. I'll be honest, it took me 3 months to get it going, but I'm really enjoying it. And I'm still working on the marketing end. That's the hardest part for me. This is also in support of my life coaching business. I have my own company called Two Cats Coaching, and I specifically work with people with ADHD, as well as teachers and people who are single. Those are really kind of my three specialties. So that's the long list. And again, these are just things that I'm doing now. So if you're tired and overwhelmed listening to it, I apologize. Most people I know are astonished by how many things that I choose to do. But this is what serves my ADHD brain. This is how I get my dopamine. I really love this more than just teaching 8 to 5 every day. It's much more exciting for me. I've chosen 3 of these experiences to break down. I'm going to talk about one that is no longer on the list because it didn't work very well, and 2 that are. And by the way, if you want me to ever give you more highlights on some of the things that I currently do, let me know. I'm happy to share my experience. I'm going to start with the ugly. Experiences to learn from. In 2021, if you remember, we were well into the pandemic. I was teaching. I had actually been on sabbatical, came off sabbatical during the pandemic. and teaching was a mess. And my situation was especially messy, even as messes went. And I got really fed up. I was 1 foot out the door already. I was getting ready. I knew I could take an early retirement. And so I was just looking for a little bit more work that would be paying well enough to get me out of there. And during that time, I refinanced my home. And when I did, the woman who came to go through all my paperwork was also a former teacher. And she told me about what it was like to be a loan signing agent and notary. And I decided, wow, this is something I definitely could do. I have those skills. It took me about $2,000 to $3,000 up front for the course, certifications, insurance, a good laser printer, which I still have, even though I'm not doing it anymore, and a good scanner. There's one behind me there too. The work was fine at first. I found that getting jobs was much more difficult than I'd been led to believe, and that the work was really saturated in my state. The apps didn't work very well, and it was really a speed game. You had to be the fastest person to answer. Well, my own personal beliefs would not let me answer unless I knew I could do it, which meant looking at my calendar first. Something that really should only take a few seconds. But a few seconds lost me jobs. In the end, the money turned out to be a lot less than I'd been led to believe, about a third of what I was seeing advertised. And then as the pandemic lifted, the work really dried up. When insurance rates went up, people stopped refinancing, and there just weren't very many gigs left. And the last thing that really kicked me over, and I'm going to tell a quick story here, the companies that were hiring the loan signing agents, if you've ever bought or sold a house, there are so many people who have their hands in that process. The companies that were hiring us were incredibly heavy micromanagers. And here's my story. It was a Tuesday. A job came through. I clicked on it. I did receive the job. The job was for Friday of that week, so 4 days later. I did a quick look through information. I did a quick look through the paperwork, but you can't do anything with the paperwork much in advance because a lot of it can change in the last couple of days. I learned by experience, don't print it ahead of time because I'll have to reprint. So I did a quick glance. One of the things I did notice in the many directions was they were requiring a mask. This would have been in 2021. So that wasn't a big surprise. That evening, 8:30 my time. And I'm in Colorado, so I'm kind of it's not like I'm East Coast and 8:30 is really early in California. It's not. My phone rings. It's one of the companies. I answer the phone. Turns out it's the company that had hired me for that job that was coming up 3 days later on that Friday. And they called for one reason only. They called to tell me that I am required to wear a mask during the signing. And I said, yeah, I saw that. It's not a problem. They said, okay, we just wanted to make sure you knew. So, and I'll tell you honestly, by 8:30 at night, yeah, I'm not doing that work anymore. I'm on my private time. I get up, I go to bed at 10. I'm up at 5 or 5:30. 8:30 at night is not business hours for me, only when I choose to. And certainly not on something that's not going to happen until 3 days later and that I already knew because I read directions. I was so insulted. And that was kind of the end of it for me, that I knew I could no longer do the notary signing. And so I gave it up. The second one I talk about, I actually want to talk about what it's like to be a substitute teacher. If you have a certain number of days free, you like kids, you've got some experience managing children, because that's a big part of it, it's not a bad side hack. The pay's not great, but it's come up quite a bit in the last few years. Double check different school districts. Not every school district is the same. You will need a substitute license unless you are like me, a retired teacher, in which case I still have my teaching license and that works. I don't have to do more than that. For me, I only sub in my content area, music. I will say occasionally sub a little bit of art, but I don't see that as much different. I only do that when I need a fill-in or if it's a really easy job. I bring my laptop and I use my planning periods for my own work. I work on my podcast, on trivia, on digital products. It's work that I find easy. I can walk into any music classroom and teach, so that part's really easy for me. But all the extra free time, and especially for people who are middle school and high school, it's tremendously easy. So as you are looking for side jobs, look for things that stack some benefits for you, whether it's retail discounts, quiet desk time like this one, mileage write-offs. Remember, what you make in the moment is only part of the salary. It's certainly the main part, but writing things off your taxes at the end of the year can be a big part of that. And I want to go into this as I talk about rideshare driving. I realize this is not for everybody, but this is my experience. And this is one time when I did my research and it paid off. So let's go back to 2016. I wanted a nicer car. The car I had was not doing well. It was time for a replacement. And rideshare was really just catching on here in Colorado. And it was like, I think this is something I could do. I'd been in a few rideshares. Seeing that all the directions and things were on apps was pretty easy. So I did some research. What would a good car be for rideshare? And I bought a Prius. The original plan and what I did for the first few years, because I was still working full time during this, was to cover what the car cost me. So my payment, my insurance, my gas, upkeep and cleaning, and looking at all of that, I realized that in about 8 hours a week, I could cover everything, plus have a little bit of a buffer. So in addition, all that mileage you deduct, I mean, it's just fabulous. I saved so much money on my taxes in the end. And so I did that for a long time. I did quit driving rideshare during the pandemic. I still do it a little bit here from time to time. I'm very particular about what times of day I work. I don't like doing late night drunks. So I do early morning, take people to the airports. That's much more pleasant for me. It's slightly less money, but not much different. And here's a little tip. If you are going someplace and you have flexibility in your time schedule, consider doing drives while you are commuting. 2 ways when I used to do it. Number one, I would do it on my way home from work. I had about a 25 minute drive, and I would throw on the app directional, because you're allowed to do that a certain number of times a day. I put it directional, and I can't tell you how often I picked up a little short ride, sometimes even 2. But here's the thing. Even if you don't get a ride, you are putting miles on the app, and those miles will be added to your miles at the end of the year for your taxes. It's the number of miles you drive, not just the number of miles you drive with a passenger. It's the number of miles you drive with the app on. When I really used this was when I would visit my sister, who lives about a little over an hour north of me at that time. And she lives out in the country. So I would sometimes drive on the way. Then I would try to leave the app on as long as I could going north, because she lives in the country. Nobody's going to be going that direction. Eventually it would say, hey, we're not finding you any rides, but hey, I'll take those 5 or 10 miles of free riding. Understand that if I did a ride clicked in, I was going to take it. But then I would absolutely do it when I was coming home. And so I would turn on the app, face it towards Denver, and on my way home, I would often pick up somebody, drop them off in Denver before I got to my house. And so I'd always make money and put miles on the app. I'm going to be driving those miles anyway. I might as well. There are ways to do this so that you really can make money. You'll hear a lot of people say, you can't make money driving a rideshare. You can. But you need to know what you're doing. So one other thought that I really wanted to bring up today was when it's time to quit. And for me, when the money started to dry up and then the micromanagement got even worse than usual, that was a pretty obvious one. But it can be really challenging to know, especially on something you've created yourself. You may have heard of something called the sunk cost fallacy. And it's the idea of, I spent all this money putting this together. Therefore, I have to keep it going. But sometimes it's better off just cutting your losses. Don't let guilt or your ADHD tendency to hang on just because. Take the time to analyze your return on investment. We're going to talk about that more a little bit later in the 4th episode of this. Make sure you take time to analyze that return on investment, both financial and emotional. Thank you for coming. Again, I'm Christine Dunning, and this is A Solo Person's Guide to ADHD. Next time, I'm going to break down, I think it's about 15, several popular side hustles. I'm going to show you the pros, the cons, why they may be right for you, and why they may not. And then the last one is going to be how to choose. And we're going to look at you and what you need to look at and what you need to consider to make a choice so that you can bring some extra money in your life, but do it in a way that's comfortable. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, comment. And if you're interested in hiring a life coach, that's what I'm doing. I'm also going to put my trivia information into the chat below. Check it out. Thanks so much. Have a great day.